Yo, what's up, guys? The last episode of the Thousand Year Blood War arc aired on October 17th, and unfortunately, I was not able to cover it for an extended period of time. But I did get to it as quick as I could, and today we will be reviewing the plot of the episode. Let's go. The episode begins right where episode 1 left off. Yuha has just taken the arm off his subordinate Ludas for arguing with Ebern in his presence and tells Ludas that with an injury that severe, it must be hard to even sit. Yuha tells Ludas that he is permitted to lay on the ground beneath Yuha and give his report. However, if he chooses to do that, he won't really be needing his legs. The psychological torture that Yuha is inflicting here is absolutely insane, and the close-up of Ludas's face shows this. It's one of those scenarios where a villain puts a subordinate in a situation that they can't really win no matter what they do or say, and you guys will see more of that later. After Ludas rises to his knees after being essentially forced to, still in agony and bleeding profusely, he praises Yuha, relaying to him that he would never disrespect him. Interestingly, the camera pans over to Ebern, who is still on his knees but is now panicking just being close to Yuha while he's inflicting this torture onto Ludas, and that's super interesting. He's not delighting in a man that he dislikes having his arm cut off and being threatened. No, he is petrified, and rightfully so. The scene ends with a terrifying close-up of Yuha, and Yuha asking for Ebern's report before the opening plays. Now, I won't go into an in-depth analysis on the opening, as I'm sure I'd miss a lot of stuff, but I will say that it reveals some things that happened relatively late in the manga, and I was super surprised that it showed as much as it did. The song is also pretty good and pretty catchy, but I've heard some complaints that, it wasn't as, dark as people were expecting, because the Thousand Year Blood War arc definitely has some more mature themes in it, so people were hoping for / expecting a darker theme. I definitely understand that, but I think that what we got was, solid enough. I've heard it compared to just a regular shonen opening, and I think that that's fair. Nothing too deep in my opinion. Anyway, we pick back up in Ichigo's room after Ebern has been defeated. Orihime makes a quick comment about Uryu and Ichigo becoming good friends before Ichigo comes back after his battle. Just then, Yuki gets a notification on his soul phone from Akon. The message was sent out to all of the squads in the Soul Society as well. Akon tells everyone that 7 mysterious figures invaded the Soul Society and confronted Yamamoto. Yamamoto is safe, but while they were there, they killed an officer. Around the same time, a lone intruder attacked Kokoro Gate, which is a similar gate to where Ichigo fought Jidambo in early Bleach. And in the 3-minute or 182-second battle that ensued, 116 Shinigami were killed, and Akon also relays that Chojuro Sasakibe was mortally wounded in that battle and passed away. Shortly after this, Ichigo goes out on patrol in Karakura Town when he hears his name being called from above. Nell appears out of a garganta and body slams him, letting him know that something is wrong in Hueco Mundo. Switching back to Yuha, we see Ludas giving his report, estimating that it will take around 5 days to make preparations to invade the Soul Society before Yuha shows an incredible god complex with this statement. He criticizes Ludas for making a prediction about the future, asking if Ludas is a prophet. Ludas, clearly terrified, answers no before Yuha just kills him, telling him that he wants to hear about the now and not the future. It's this situation I was talking about before, where his subordinates are put in a position where there's no right answer. He said no and died, and you have to imagine if he said yes, he would have died too. He couldn't even say maybe, he would have died saying that as well. But anyway, it's this insane fear factor that is a large part of Yuha's rule, and these situations are a good demonstration of that. After killing Ludas, Yuha tells Ebern that Ebern wasn't worthy of praise or punishment, before killing him as well, despite saying that he wasn't worthy of punishment either. Anyway, Yuha walks away from his throne and travels up a staircase where he reveals Holly-Bell chained up. After this, we travel to the Soul Society at Chojuro Sasakibe's funeral. There's a glum atmosphere complemented by the orange glow of the setting sun and the burial drums playing in the background. Everyone's silence is extremely telling, especially Yamamoto. We get a silent but very powerful visual of Chojuro bowing before Yamamoto, a testament to Chojuro's undying loyalty and dedication to serving Yamamoto. And with a heavy heart, Yamamoto gives the order to cremate Chojuro, who is resting on a funeral pyre. Transitioning back to Ichigo's bedroom, Pesce, who joined Nell in contacting Ichigo, tells everyone that after the death of Baragon and Stark, Hallibel took over control of Hueco Mundo. As he is telling the story of what happened in Hueco Mundo, we are taken there and greeted with shots of Yuha hovering before Hallibel's damaged body, with Nell, Pesce, and Dondo Chaka standing beneath her. The three begin to run after Hallibel orders them to, and Hallibel is seen being teleported with Yuha, presumably to her prison. Pesce tells everyone that the invaders were capturing Arankars and Hollows, and that Dondo Chaka was captured as they were running away. He begs Ichigo for help, and obviously Ichigo agrees. Uryu chimes in, though, saying that due to his status as a Quincy, he cannot help the rest of the group because he can't help Hollows or Arankars, but he tells Ichigo to be careful. As they are discussing what to do, Uruhara drops in, offering a trip to Hueco Mundo. Before that, however, we get a really quick scene of Yugurm Hashwald analyzing Eburn's amulet in Yuha's throne room, telling Yuha that it had been used by Eburn, but there was something strange about it, before we quickly cut to Ichigo and company running through the Garganta to Hueco Mundo. Uruhara tells him, as they're running through the Garganta, that everything is connected, if that wasn't obvious enough, and they all enter Hueco Mundo in freefall. Neliel yells in fear, attracting the attention of some nearby Quincy guards who are escorting some captured Arankars, but they manage to stay hidden. The bodies of various Hollows and Arankar are shown, most of which killed in a pretty brutal fashion. Despite Dondo Chaka not being amongst the nearby captive Hollows, Ichigo rushes out to save them. Next, we are shown a group of captured Arankar and some sort of broken down castle or base in Hueco Mundo where the Quincy have made camp. Guards are everywhere, and the prisoners are forced to stand against a wall and face the leader of this squadron, Quilge Opie, who I've been super excited to see. I think his uniform, yet off-putting appearance with these big circular glasses and narrow face, meshed with his eccentric personality is really cool, but I'm getting a bit ahead of myself. He starts this loud, energetic speech telling the captives that they'll be competing to survive. Then he starts suggesting that the captives get down on their knees and beg for their lives in a really patronizing manner. I'm not afraid to admit it took me a second to get a beat on this tone. I was going to go with condescending, but that felt a little bit too broad, so I had to find the term to use. It may not sound like a big deal, but I mention it because I think the way that he conducts himself in this scene and overall is really interesting and meshes nice with his design. Anyway, one Arankar begins to ask if he can be spared before Quilge stabs him immediately. Quilge then begins to stress that this is a competition before he starts to stab the line of Arankars at random, despite claiming that he would execute them right to left before. Anyway, two officers in the back discuss whether or not he actually intends on sparing any Arankar before they agree that no, he doesn't, and he's just messing with them. As Quilge is stabbing down the line, two captive Arankar work together to break their chains and unsheath a hidden sword pointing it directly at Quilge. These two identify themselves as Lowly and Menali, servants of Aizen, and the two Arankar that gave Orihime such a hard time in the original Bleach anime while Orihime was held captive in Hueco Mundo. Quilge quickly disarms them and dispatches them, and orders his men to essentially beat them to the brink of death, saying that Yuha demanded that any particularly bold Arankar be brought to him. Funnily enough, Quilge starts to diss Aizen and Hallibel as he walks away from the scene. The sound of someone being executed, however, alerts Quilge, and he turns to see his soldiers being cut down in a very uncensored manner. Three Arankar reveal themselves and identify themselves as Mila Rose, Sun Sun, and Apache. They are the Tres Bestia, the three Fracciones of Hallibel. Excuse my poor Spanish. Anyway, they start mopping through Quilge's soldiers. Not gonna lie, it's bad for them. Anyway, Ichigo approaches the battlefield, and Nell recognizes the spiritual pressure of the three, telling Ichigo that their opponents will very soon taste defeat. And switching back to the massacre, yes, their opponents are indeed facing defeat. You don't really see it as much in original Bleach. These three are just these, cute, feisty anime girls, so you don't really think much about it. These guys are about the business. They are cleaving through meat and bone, and I am loving the brutality that these three are bringing to the table. This scene definitely puts some respect on their name. Quilgay is just watching his soldiers get handled before Sun Sun throws hands with him in an extremely cool yet short scene. You see these three Fractiones tearing through these random Quincy soldiers, and here Sun Sun is throwing stab after stab toward Quilgay as he casually dodges with a smile on his face. Quilgay's pompous, subordinate-like appearance is really obvious. He looks like a traditional, arrogant, cowardly henchman, so to see him casually dodging this flurry of stabs aimed straight at his head is an incredibly entertaining contrast to watch. Anyway, the three finish squad wiping literally, and now it's just them versus Quilgay. We tone switch completely to a grim captain's meeting where Mayuri informs the captains that the invaders are indeed Quincy, before we finally switch back to Ichigo arriving on the battlefield to see that unfortunately all three Fractiones have been off-screen by Quilgay. The episode ends in an epic stare-off between Quilgay OP and Ichigo Kurosaki. Now, this episode was great and I really enjoyed it, but I don't have as much to talk about for this one as I do for episode 1. I will have a video coming out soon, a very late video, but a video nonetheless, discussing what I really liked about episode 1. But considering not as much happened in this episode, I can quickly go over some things that I thought were really nice. Number 1, Yuha. Yuha is very menacing. He reminds me of, no one freak out over this, it's just a comparison. I know Demon Slayer was made after, but he reminds me of Muzan in a way. The way he plays a lot of mental games with his subordinates, not really giving them a choice to live once they have made a mistake. The stress you feel in his presence is really tangible, and it doesn't take almost anything to die by his hands. You could even do something satisfactory or, not even worth mentioning like Eburn and still end up dying. These few scenes really iron out that this is a dictator with a god complex to a degree that we have never seen before, and he has the cold appearance to match. Next is the animation. I've been loving the animation. I've been trying to keep track of characters we have seen in the new anime with the new animation. And during some of the captain scenes I saw in this episode, I just paused and looked through the various designs. I know we have seen most, if not all of them, in the trailers, but it's still really cool to see in the anime itself. Uruhara and Nell were also really cool to see visually, and I love how they're animated, and I'm also really enjoying the gore that comes with the combat. One thing that I think a lot of franchises don't care about is that their audience grows older and can tolerate more mature themes and visuals. Star Wars, for example, has been a huge part of my life growing up, but recently it's been pretty easy to tell that people in charge don't really care that I'm not 10, at least in their big productions. When I watch Bleach, however, I don't get that same feeling of being disregarded. I don't feel like I'm being babied or shielded from the reality of combat in the world of Bleach. Kubo knows his audience, and his goal is to give them a good experience. And part of that is seeing a dude get cut in half by an attractive woman every once in a while. I don't know. I'm enjoying that aspect. Finally, I'll talk about Quilgay. I mentioned that I was super excited to see him in live action. Live action. That would be terrifying. But I've been super excited to see Quilgay animated. I mentioned this before, but I am an anime-only viewer, technically. And from sneak peeks that I've seen in the trailers, I've really been hyped to see Quilgay and what he can do. I've deliberately avoided reading the manga itself so that I can experience characters like Quilgay for the first time, and I am not disappointed. I mentioned before that I enjoy the contrast between his pompous appearance and attitude and his seemingly high combat ability, and I'm extremely excited to see the fight play out. I really enjoyed that stare down between, Ichigo and Quilgay at the end, and I hope it's going to be a great fight. Anyway, that is my quick review of episode 2 of the 1000-Year Blood War arc of Bleach. Once again, I apologize. This is extremely late. I don't know when I'm going to be able to get this out. I will do it as soon as I can. But I also intend to release quite a few videos in the next couple days, much more than I do on average. So, I'm just going through recording various scripts now. And then we'll see. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoy. I'm working on a few vids, and yeah, I am Sentiment, and I would assume that is my cue.